Hey guys, I apologize for not being able to do a live video at all yesterday or even most of the day today. Just had a lot going on and all. And, um, the, so the aftermath of one of the wrecks that I saw yesterday morning on the way to work, which I was off today, going back tomorrow. Excuse me. But, that's part of life, but I'm not complaining about it at all. But I want to be very, very clear on what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And if I have time in the morning, also, and you were wondering what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the flash flood risk, which is high. It's very high. And the severe weather risk for Saturday. And if you've been paying attention to the TV, to the weather and all, which I hope and pray you have, um, there's been a lot of flooding. There has been a lot of flooding in a number of uh, locations. There's been a, there's been a lot of flooding out there, and the thing that I've heard about the flash flood watch that was issued earlier this afternoon, about 1:30, maybe a little after 1:30, or between 1 and 2 this afternoon. Oh, I have to keep an eye on the tweets that I'm getting to make sure I'm not missing any flood warnings or anything like that that may be coming out or may just be updated or so. But excuse me. But anyway, there's still a bunch of flood warnings, river flood warnings, or whatever you want to call them. They're in place till, I'll just say, till further notice. That would probably be the best way to. Uh, eh, um, there's there's been a lot of flooding, and there's a lot of flood warnings that have been in place for probably the last 2 or 3 days or so. And I wasn't surprised about it happening because it was talked about for a while, for a week or so. So everybody should have been prepared for it. And if you have not been prepared for it, get prepared immediately. And what I say immediately, I mean now. And if you live near any creeks or streams or rivers or lakes or ponds, anything that's considered flood prone, please pay extremely close attention to the weather right now. If the news is on and they're discussing the weather, pay extremely close attention to it right now. and don't ignore it. I mean, the flooding threat is very high. And when I saw on the text of the watch, the flash flood watch, said it was a high flood, the flood risk, that there was a high flood risk. So it's high, and it is nothing. It is absolutely nothing to fool around with. And I've heard, I've heard a bunch of meteorologists or so say something about it. And I think on the text of the watch it mentioned about that it could be potentially life threatening, or it could be a life threatening flooding, a life threatening situation. Hang on just a minute. Wait, it's situated. Alright, well, that's a little bit better. Excuse me. Alright, there we go. Hopefully that's a lot more convenient. But anyway, the flooding threat is very, very high. I mean, the the Weather Prediction Center sometime today, I guess, sometime this afternoon or so, put a good chunk of North Alabama and a good portion of Tennessee, Middle Tennessee or so rather, and Mississippi also in a high risk for flash flooding, or just for flooding. And of course that means the flooding threat is high, and it's life threatening, or it could be life threatening if you don't take it seriously. And excuse me. And like I've been talking about, and like the people at all the TV stations in Huntsville and Birmingham and Montgomery and even Mobile and all others have talked about what they've been talking about. This has been talked about for a week, and there's been plenty of discussions about it. So everybody should have already been prepared for it. If not, now is the time. Before you go to bed tonight, make sure you're prepared. And and the other problem that's been the case during the flooding is the other the other problem that's been going on concerning the flooding is people driving. Uh, they've either attempted to drive through the floodwaters or they have driven through the floodwaters, and it has resulted in water rescues and all. But so far, the encouraging thing that I've heard is no injuries or fatalities. That's the encouraging news, and I certainly wanted to stay that way. And we hope and pray it stays that way. But I really want to be clear on this. If you're driving and you're wherever you're going right now or later on during the night, please be careful. And if you come across a road that's flooded, please do not drive through them. I mean, seriously, please do not drive through them. There's there, there's no sense in doing it. Because when you do that, all you're doing is risking your life and the lives of those around you, putting your putting your life and other people's life in danger and at risk. I apologize for that. I don't know what happened just now, but as I was saying before that thing interrupted me, was that if and whether a warning is issued or not, whether there's a flood warning or flash flood warning or any or flood advisory, it doesn't matter. Warning or no warning, if you're driving or walking right now or later on tonight or in the morning or whatever, and you come across a road that's flooded, please do not drive through the flooded roads. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Because when you do that, all you're doing is putting your life and the lives of others in danger, and in great or extreme danger. And it just does not make any sense doing it. It just doesn't. And I think I'm pretty confident there is a law saying you cannot do that. You don't need to be doing that. And and I'm not trying to beat anybody down, or I'm not trying to beat anyone down or up for I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to give simple information that is understanding, very understanding for everybody. I'm not trying to beat anybody down, I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, I'm not trying to do any of that. Well, as I was saying before I was interrupted again, um, if you're wherever you're if you're going in if you have to go anywhere tonight, be careful. Please be careful, and please do not attempt or even think about attempting to drive through any flood waters. Just don't do it. Please just don't do it. I mean, your life is too important and precious. I mean, every life is important and precious, and there's it doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever to put it in jeopardy or risk or danger, whatever you want to call it. It just doesn't. And now, um, if you don't have to travel tonight, just stay home. And there has been roads in Russellville that have been flooded, covered water, or perhaps even been closed. There's been a number of them closed or covered with water or something. And if they have barricades on them, if you see them, do not drive around them or anything like that. Just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to try to do it. And basically, the simple phrase, turn around, don't drown. That's the simple rule, or simple phrase, whatever, or safety tip. Yes. And um, and if you're if you live near a river or anything like that, and you can see the water is starting to rise and come right at you. If there's water, if you live near a thing, if you live near the rivers or anything like that, and the water starts to, and the water's rising and it starts to inch towards your house or wherever you're at, wherever you are, get get out of that spot immediately and get somewhere else safe. Not trying to scare anybody or nothing. Trying to give very simple information the children should be able to hopefully be able to understand. There's if you want to see her. You're on camera. 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 Oh, bless your heart. Oh, you're on camera. Camera. Well, that's okay. Um, Now before I end the video, before I end the before I end the video in a matter of minutes, the flooding threat is not the only thing we need to be paying extremely close attention to. We also need to be paying attention to Saturday also. And what I mean, the afternoon and evening hours or early morning hours on Sunday because of a severe weather threat that that is possible or potentially even likely or probably is likely. There is an enhanced risk for strong to severe storms over northwest Alabama that'll be here in the Shoals, the Florence, Sheffield, and Tuscumbia, Muscle Shoals, and Russellville and Phil Campbell area. And that would mean numerous severe storms and persistent storms are likely. And there's a slight risk for the rest from I-65 east. Well, there's a slight risk along with an enhanced risk for strong to severe storms west of I-65 and along I-65 and east of I-65. Basically all the way down to the Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and Anniston-Gadsden area and call Fort Payne and Huntsville north. And a marginal risk from Montgomery up to Roanoke and central and most of in most of central and south Alabama. And there's a number of threats with it, with damaging winds and even a few tornadoes. I've not so far heard anything about hail being possible, but it is possible also. But damaging winds, excuse me, there's a threat for damaging winds and a threat for a few tornadoes. And hopefully nothing long track. The one thing that I've been hearing from Jason Simpson and the rest from 19 could be a line of storms. And of course, he did a live video earlier discussing it, and of course, looking at the models and stuff like that. And of course, some might have been showing where may have individual storms that may, and if there's storms that form out ahead of the main line, then they have a higher chance of producing a tornado. And of course, that's a big concern. But one thing I also want to be clear is when I say all this, along with the flooding threat, man, uh, uh,
Any more.
uh,
Bye, y'all.
Women should be careful. Bye. Alright, like I was saying, um, but yeah, the flooding threat is very high, and there's also a threat for strong to severe storms Saturday afternoon and evening, and perhaps even early Sunday morning for a good chunk of Alabama and now, and of course across Tennessee, including Memphis and the rest. And it's pretty significant, but just hope and pray for the best, prepare for the worst. But um, um, like I said, the enhanced risk in Alabama is for Northwest Alabama, where I live here in Layton and the rest of the Shoals area, Florence, Sheffield, Tuscumbia, Muscle Shoals, Russellville, and Layton, and Killen, and Rogersville, Phil Campbell, and all those locations. And the slight risk is for most of Northwest Alabama also, or most of the show, good portion of the shows also, but also for areas eastward from Athens, Decatur, Coleman, along I-65, and Huntsville, and all those places, and even down to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Anniston, and Gadsden. They're all in the slight risk also, and the marginal risk from Montgomery to Roanoke and elsewhere. So it's serious business. Nothing to joke around with, nothing to fool around with, and nothing to ignore. And um, uh, as far as the threats and all for it, the thing that I've heard, damaging winds and possibly even a few tornadoes. And it doesn't matter if it's long track or short lived, they're all dangerous, and you have to take them seriously. And now we don't need to be fully caught up on the risk areas, because when those storms come in Saturday, whether it's in the afternoon or evening, those risk areas will not be as important. The watches and the warnings will be more important. So I just want to make that very clear. But right now there are no severe weather warnings. We're not having severe weather tonight that I'm aware of so far. The primary concern overnight tonight, and of course the rest of tomorrow, is the flooding. And because of that, there's a number of schools that have been on a 2 or 3 hour delay, and others that are just going to be closed the whole time tomorrow. And it's the right call for everybody's safety, kids, everybody. And excuse me. Um, but that's basically the case right now. But there's there is still a little bit of uncertainty about the threat Saturday. But what I have heard so far for now is damaging winds and possibly even a few tornadoes, and also flooding is also again possible. That's one thing we cannot ignore. Hopefully nobody has ignored these flood warnings and flash flood warnings that have been all over the place this week. If you have, I'm begging you to take them very seriously and do not ignore them. I mean, when those warnings are issued, they're issued for a reason. They're not there to the cry wolf thing or nothing like that. It's serious business. And the with the flooding being a high risk, the fact that it could be life threatening, that's why nobody should be ignoring the warnings at all. And if I offend someone saying that, that's too bad. I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm just trying to make sure people like you are being safe. That's the bottom line. If anyone tries to send me hate mail and all that, I'll ignore them. I'll call them out, like I've done numerous times. I'll be respectful about it, but be firm about it also. If you guys have any questions concerning the flooding threat and the severe weather threat, feel free to ask me now, and or anytime during the night, and I'll be glad to answer them. Now, one thing yeah, if there's um, if there's any, well, there's a number of things I want to give you a heads up on. When even if I don't do a live video on YouTube discussing the flooding threat and the severe weather threat, that does not mean I'm not discussing it. What I may be doing is posting it, the information about it on Facebook and on Twitter and perhaps Instagram. So I'm on all three of those sites. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. You can follow me on all three of those sites. I do post the information on there concerning the flooding and severe weather threat. And I've been doing it pretty much all day today. And um, now am I gonna stay up all night and do it? Not really, unless there's any flash flood warnings that are issued and you're looking up by the weather radio now for them. If that's the case, I'll get right on here and let you know about it and let you know if you're in the warning or not and what precautions you need to be taking, which is very simple. Turn around, don't drown, and get to higher ground. That's very simple. And don't drive through flooded roads, roadways, or anything like that. And if there's barricades out there, do not go around them. Very simple. And make sure you have multiple ways of receiving the warnings. One of which a weather radio, which I hope everybody has. And this is Severe Weather Awareness Week, and this will be the tax-free Severe Weather Preparedness tax-free weekend or something like that I'm aware of. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And this will be a very good week to get yourself a weather radio if you do not have one already. Because they will wake you up if there's a warning in place. If you have the volume turned up loud on it, it will wake you up and you have it set up and all that. They will wake you up in the middle of the night for a flash flood warning or tornado warning, anything like that. As long as you have them set up to go off anyway. But they will wake you up in the middle of the night. The sirens will not wake you up in the middle of the night. There may be some that will, but others won't. So do not depend on the sirens. The other thing the sirens should be a last resort. But get a weather radio and a very reliable weather app on your phone or tablet and have them set for your current location. That way, if there's any warnings, you'll get the warning. If you're not in the warning, you won't get it. But if you're in the warning, you'll get the alert. And it's very simple. Just make sure you know if you're in the warning. And if you're not in the warning, the danger may be nearby. Stay tuned, but you don't have to take action. But if you're in it, you have to take action immediately. And I have not, unfortunately, I have not been able to, quite frankly, discuss, the Severe Weather Awareness Week. I haven't been able to do it because of the flooding. And yes, I've been seeing the videos from Shoals Insider about the crossings in Sheffield being blocked by the trains, and yes, that's important, but making sure people are aware of the flooding situation, the life-threatening flooding situation, and the severe weather risk or situation we could be having Saturday and Saturday night. all that is way more important than the train deal in Sheffield. And I'm not going to apologize for saying once all this is over, then I'll discuss the train situation. But for now, I'm not doing it. So don't get mad at me if I don't discuss it right then. Because I'm trying to make sure people are safe during bad weather. If you don't like it, get over it. Let's see. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me now. So I'm gonna check the time right quick. Without my hand getting in the video. 10:45. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go ahead and end this video right now. Um, I plan on doing another video in the morning before I have to go to work. I'm specifically talking about doing one here at home because I honestly don't believe I'm gonna have a chance to do one outside the building tomorrow morning. I just don't. I could be wrong, but I just don't see that possible at this time or point. We'll see how it goes. I will make sure I have time to do a video in the morning and keep y'all posted. Basically, I'm gonna keep doing these videos until this is all over. But, but please, please, please take all flood warnings and flash flood warnings and advisories. Take them very seriously and don't ignore them. And if the flood risk is high, like I've been saying, and like others have been saying, and there's a threat for strong to severe storms Saturday and Saturday night. Enhanced risk for northwest Alabama and parts of Mississippi and Tennessee, and slight risk elsewhere, and marginal risk elsewhere. Take it seriously. Alright, y'all have a good night. Be safe. Don't be on the roads tonight if you don't have to, but if you have to be on the roads, be careful.